This video is brought to you by our friends over at RV Overnights.
This is RV Destinations Podcast.
Hello, everybody. How's everybody going? Would like to welcome everybody out to the show.
How's everybody going?
How's everybody going? Yeah.
How's everybody doing?
How's everybody doing?
Going.
Going.
Where are they going?
Where are you going?
Where are you going?
Exactly. Well, we're here in Tombstone, Arizona. We're excited to be with you. We want to welcome out all our YouTube subscribers and then also our audio podcast subscribers. Thank you for tuning in. We got a really good show. I know we say that all the time, but we really have a really good show. And those that are watching on YouTube probably noticed that we're not in our RV.
We're not.
Why don't you introduce our guest, babe, and then we can kind of jump in.
We're going to jump in. So much to dump. Okay, so with us we have Tony Joe Gonzalez, who is the assistant manager of the Boothill Graveyard. Oh my gosh, which is so cool. And then we have Nova Fleury, who is the tourism ambassador for this incredible town of Tombstone, Arizona. And yes, Tombstone is a town. It's also a movie, but it's an actual town. Just want to point that out.
That's right. Welcome to the show, you two.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we're really, really excited about this. We are actually in the historical building. This building is built by Ed Schifflin's brother.
It's Al, right? Al Schifflin?
Al Schifflin, yeah.
Schifflin, okay.
Yeah, to honor his brother Ed.
And this was built in 1883, is that correct?
1881.
1881.
Okay,
yes.
so essentially in the heyday of Tombstone, and we'll talk a lot about that, but we'll probably get more into this actual building in the show. But the way we want to kind of start off is, most people have seen the movie Tombstone, but I wanted Caly to read a brief paragraph about the history and kind of where it developed. And again, this is a very short synopsis. A lot more of the history will come out in our top 10. But you want to read that for everybody?
Sure. Okay, kids, gather around. Here we go. So Tombstone, Arizona was founded in 1877 by prospector Ed Schifflin, who struck silver in the harsh desert despite warnings that all he would find out here was his own tombstone, hence the town's name. It quickly became one of the wealthiest and most infamous boom towns of the Wild West, attracting miners, outlaws, and fortune seekers. By the early 1880s, it had a population of over 15,000 people, making it larger than San Francisco at the time. Oh my gosh, wow. The town became legendary for the gunfight at the OK Corral in 1881, where Wyatt Earp, his brothers, and Doc Holliday clashed with the Clanton-McClurry gang in one of the history's most famous shootouts. Tombstone saw two devastating fires in the 1880s, and when the silver mines began to flood, its boom ended. However, it never truly became a ghost town. Today, Tombstone is preserved as a piece of the Old West history, drawing visitors. Over 500,000 people a year come here with its reenactments, historic saloons, and haunted landmarks. It truly is the town too tough to die.
Too tough to die. Is
too
that
tough
correct?
To die.
Absolutely true. It
really
too
is.
Stubborn as well.
Yeah, too stubborn. I love that. It's just stubborn. It's not going anywhere.
Before we read that paragraph, we should have given you a few moments just to tell us a little bit about yourself. We did introduce your role. So Nova, why don't we start with you? Kind of tell us a little bit about your ambassador role here and what you do for the city and of Tombstone.
Well, years ago I came here and I was just like anybody else. I didn't know anything about Tombstone, and I saw a show and I joined the show that day. And that was 33 years ago. I was hooked immediately. And so I was a reenactor for years. I was a tour guide at the Birdcage for years. I did the ghost tours as well. Yes, that would be me.
I love it.
And so I just loved and joined in the history. And then when I started working for the city, I ended up helping with management of our visitor center and working on the tourism there. And Terry and I have become a great team at the visitor center. And then we also had an ambassador that I have to mention. Her name was Sunny Quachin.
Oh yeah, we've heard of Sunny.
And Sunny, she said, "I trust you to carry on when I can't do some of these things." So those are huge size 5 shoes to fill. So now I am, in addition to my job at City Hall, because I do work at City Hall as well, I am the new tourism ambassador for this city, helping to generate some of these new partnerships that we're trying to do, especially with, the RVers out there now. Carissa, my city clerk and I, she's the head of our marketing department. And we were at a conference in Tucson just last month where we were talking about, we feel like some of the RV market is untapped.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And so now that it's such a big thing, and Tombstone actually accommodates probably 300 snowbirders a year that are permanent winter visitors. So we want to make sure they have everything they need to get the best experience and the best day they can while they're here.
Fabulous.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, Tony Joe, you're the assistant manager over at Boothill Cemetery, which is it's
Cool
a toss up
and
it's a toss up between the Birdcage and
the
Boothill as
cemetery,
far as
I
my favorite thing
know.
here.
They go hand in hand, the Birdcage and Boothill. You don't really have one without the other.
So true.
Especially with, the violence that was happening in town. But it's a really good spot for history. You have a lot of lives, unfortunately ending, but coming together to showcase what the town was.
Mhm.
You have your cowboys that were notorious bad guys, your ladies of the night who were essentially making the town on the down low.
Mhm.
Regular families, children, even women. So you do have everybody that was making Tombstone, not just your Clanton and McClarys from the OK Corral shootout,
Right.
but your average citizens that were really making the town the place to be back then.
Yeah. That's really cool. I never really thought of it that way, but that's absolutely true. That's very cool.
I'm excited to dive in. I just love
I
this
am
place.
too.
And so the next stage, what we usually do is fun facts. I've got some fun facts here.
And I've got some too.
You've got some too?
I do.
Well, let me read mine first. This
Okay,
is my
and
only
then
job of the show.
I know.
All right. So you ladies, if there's something that you want to add to what I'm saying, or if you say that's not right, feel free. I usually try to double check these to make sure they are accurate, but definitely help us out. So the first one I've got is Wyatt Earp was never actually a sheriff. Despite the most famous lawman of Tombstone, Wyatt Earp was never an official sheriff. He was a deputy U.S. Marshal and a temporary assistant city marshal. His brother Virgil was the actual lawman in town during the infamous gunfight at the OK Corral. I literally read exactly how it
You
sounds.
do. You're so stinking cute.
Infamous gunfight at OK Corral in 1881. So a lot of people probably didn't know that. The gunfight at the OK Corral didn't happen at the OK Corral. This is something that a lot of people don't know. One of the most famous shootouts in history actually took place in a vacant lot behind the photography studio.
But that doesn't sound like the gunfight that happened in the vacant lot behind the photo studio. That's just too many words.
You just took my, I was going to say near, but not inside the OK Corral. But let's be honest, the gunfight behind the photo studio doesn't have the same ring. Thank you for taking my thunder.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm sorry I stole your thunder. But it sounded better when you said it.
In the gunfight, actually, my understanding from the tours is actually pushed out onto Fremont Street, which is actually U.S. Highway 80, correct? Okay. Yeah, so there's a lot. And if you take one of the tours, and we're going to be talking about that in the top 10, you'll learn all this, that it was near the OK Corral, but not at the OK Corral. So Tombstone had more millionaires than anywhere in the West. In 1880s, Tombstone was booming with silver mines that made it one of the richest towns in the country. At its peak, Tombstone had a population of around 15,000 people, making it larger than San Francisco at the time. Very, very big. And I believe Arizona Bill told us there was over 100
millionaires in the 1880s in this town.
In 1880, that's
Out
crazy.
of 15,000 people. That's insane. I mean, your odds of becoming a millionaire were pretty good.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that silver mining is actually what brought us here. They come here because they've seen the movie or they know about Wyatt Earp or whatever, but they don't have any idea that silver mining is actually what put us on the map first.
Yeah, and it was to a tune of, in today's dollars, $1.2 to $2.5 billion was mined out of this town.
In silver mining, yes, ma'am.
Woo-hoo, that's a lot of
That's
money.
crazy. And Caly alluded it in that first paragraph, but basically Ed Schifflin found this place in 1877. He struck silver. It was mined for many years, and then the two things happened. The mine started flooding was one of the problems, and then also the value of silver started going down, and so it just wasn't worth it for them to pump out. Well, they were trying to pump it out, right? It was just ruining all their the pumping gears. So they finally just gave up, and then that's when you start seeing the decline of Tombstone. So anyway, very interesting story. A lot of history here, as we said. So the famous Birdcage, which is, again, one of my top things here, and it should be one of yours too. The famous Birdcage Theater was insanely dangerous. That's right. The Birdcage Theater was a combination of a saloon, brothel, and gambling hall that was open 24/7 for 8 years straight. It was actually a poker game, which we'll talk about.
Don't you steal my
We'll
thunder.
be talking about that. But during its time, it saw at least 26 documented deaths. And there's still over 140 bullet holes in the walls. And again, we'll go into more detail on this into the show. Today is considered one of the most haunted buildings in the West. And we have something very special. Nova was a tour guide there for 20 years.
Well, no, not for 20 years.
Oh, I thought you said 20 years.
No. I
Okay.
was there on and off for a lot of years.
Okay.
I was
many years.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was there on and off between a move and a marriage and
Okay,
different but yeah, I was at the Birdcage a long time. The Birdcage is my favorite place in the entire world. And when they started doing the paranormal tours there, I was actually the first tour guide that they cast.
Wow.
So I was the first one to do the paranormal tours, and it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. Really and truly was.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about that in more detail. And Nova actually gave us a private tour of the Birdcage, which was just amazing. And thank you so much. But the next one, it falls into Tony Joe's area. The original Boothill Cemetery had a lot of unmarked graves. Boothill Cemetery, where many of the Tombstone outlaws and gunfighters were buried, was notorious for unmarked and shallow graves. Many bodies were quickly buried after a shootout, and some weren't even recorded. It's said that even today, new graves and remains are occasionally being discovered. Is that pretty true?
Pretty true. After our second fire in 1883, we lost records. Our acting courthouse was completely devastated. So it's estimated there are 93 unknown graves out there. The other graves that are known were found essentially by our townsfolks and Mr. Nunnally, who caretook it in his later years of the 1940s. But in 6 short years, that site was considered full, and the Birdcage had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Yeah, I love how they say 26 documented. So that means there was probably more.
Well,
and they
many
just never were
undocumented. Just throw them out back.
Right. This is fun. So Tombstone's name was actually a joke that came true. When Ed Schifflin came to prospect for silver, soldiers warned him that all he's going to find was his own tombstone here in the Apache-filled desert. When he struck it rich, he named his mine the Tombstone, and the name stuck for the entire town. So that's a fun story. And Ed Schifflin, he was a scout for the Army and stationed at one of the bases nearby, right?
Camp Huachuca.
And he was going out on the weekends or whatever, and he was actually trying to mine and
he was prospecting.
Yep. But very cool. It once had Tombstone once had the most modern ice cream parlor in the West. This is interesting because this is about in the building we're in right now. So even in the lawless frontier, Tombstone had Schifflin Hall, right? Schifflin Hall, sorry. I keep saying it wrong. A grand opera house and gathering place, complete with top-tier ice cream parlor. One of the first in the Arizona territory. Who knew cowboys had sweet teeth? So is that true? We didn't even talk about that. So I found that out there on the internet.
I actually didn't know that.
Okay.
I completely forgot. Know that.
Growing up, I think it was around the side, that little side court area.
Oh, yeah?
That is
there were businesses there. That's right.
I want to say it was around the
gosh.
side because you wouldn't know. I think it faced the Gird block, which is the parking lot behind us.
Yes.
Now they completely leveled that area.
Yes.
But during that time, that was a business area. You would have had multiple businesses inside that, like any other business plaza. Tombstone was very, very modern for its time.
Yeah.
You had the money out here to get away with a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, that would be great. And it's so funny because it's not funny, but it's right here in the hall that we're in right now, folks.
Right.
That old ice cream parlor. There's no ice cream here yet. You have to go into Old Tombstone to get that. But anyway, Wyatt Earp got into a bar fight with a boxer and won. And I don't think this actually happened in Tombstone. I don't think, unless you guys can confirm it. Famous boxer John Shaughnessy once got into a brawl with Wyatt Earp. The fight didn't last long because Earp knocked him out cold with a single punch. So,
Go Earp.
I know later in life, Earp got into boxing and a few things, and that happened out in California. So the entire town nearly burned down twice, and we did hear a lot about this during our tour yesterday or Saturday.
Tombstone had two massive fires in 1880s that nearly wiped it off the map. The first in 1881 started in a saloon. The second in 1882 destroyed 66 businesses in 45 minutes, including the OK Corral. So the OK Corral has been completely rebuilt.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing, the world's largest rose bush grows in Tombstone. I think one of you were telling us about this. Believe it or not, amidst all the gunfights in Wild West history, Tombstone is home to the world's largest rose bush. Planted in 1885, the Lady Banksia rose bush?
Yes, the Lady Banksia.
Right? Banksia, okay. Now covers over 9,000 square feet.
Oh my gosh.
And continues to bloom every spring.
Jeez.
It was brought from Scotland as a gift and has thrived in the desert climate for well over a century. Today, visitors can see this incredible piece of Tombstone history in the Rose Tree Museum.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, even just driving around town, you will see cuttings that have established, like our historic Catholic church, the rear of that has a cutting that has exploded. It is huge.
Wow.
And they have the tea party under it for
they do.
springtime.
Yes.
So there's a lot of
during the Rose
events.
Festival, because they do have a Rose Festival.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, in April. They're coming up. It's coming up. April 12th is the Rose Festival. The weekend of the 12th is the Rose Festival. And it literally was just a gift from a lady who boarded. It was a boarding house.
Mm-hmm.
And she loved the landlord, thought a lot of her. She missed her gardens back in Scotland and asked for her family to send seedlings of her favorite garden plants.
Gosh.
And that was one of them. When it took, she gave a cutting to the landlady that she thought was such a neat friend who had befriended her. And so that's why it's here.
Think about that, folks. Since the 1800s, this rose bush has been just thriving.
I think the base is about 8 feet.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I do not have a green thumb, so it was a good thing that I didn't plant that back then, because we wouldn't be telling the story.
People can buy cuttings too. You can buy cuttings. So people who do have a green thumb can actually take a piece of it with them.
If I can get it to survive till we get it home back to Kentucky, I'm going to give it to Carmen. My friend Carmen she has brought back to life all that I'm like, I killed it.
She kills them, and her friend Carmen brings them back to life. She killed 2 cactuses for the lack of water. Put it that way. So I don't even know how that happens. But anyway, so now now we got kind of the history and set the stage, so to speak. Let's talk about what you need to do when you get down here. So why don't you take it away, babe?
It was really tough. I came up with this top 10, and then I literally had another list of things that we didn't even get to do or even talk about, really, because there's so much in this town. And I think that's a big misconception. And it was a misconception for us the first time we came. We did what people do. We came in, we saw the gunfight at the OK Corral. We walked down the main street, up one side, down the other, and left. And we're like, oh, that's cute. And then we came back and did the tour with you, Nova. And we're like, oh my gosh, we totally missed out. There's so much here to see and
Absolutely,
do.
there is.
Like, we spent all day with you Saturday, all day. And I'm like, babe, I want to come back. There's still more I want to see. There's still more I want to do. Yeah.
But also, you should let people know that are listening that if you only have a few hours, you can still get a lot in a few hours. Or if you want to, carve out a day or two, you've got enough to do for a day or two as well. So I want everybody to know you can do either.
You can do either. It's more than, and I didn't say that very well. I didn't say it at all. But yeah, so if you want to come and you only have a couple hours, absolutely. There's things on this top 10 list that you can do within those couple hours. And if you say, hey, I want to be a snowbird, come to the area and spend a month, 2 months, 3 months, guess what? You're still going to have plenty to do here.
Well, you bet.
So it's everything in between. So we're going to dive in here. And this was very interesting for me. Number 10 is grab a brew or some vino, because you have not only the Tombstone Brewery that makes its own local beer, which I thought was really cool, but you also have the Silver Strike Winery and the Cabal Cellars, which both, I understand the Silver Strike Winery is a local wine that they make. And then it sounds like Cabal Cellars serves Arizona wines. Is that right?
I believe so. I believe they're out of Wilcox, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
They're a good little junction for your brews and your wines, being right in the middle of Wilcox, which has a huge vineyard kind of community. Sonoyta, Patagonia, which also has a lot of wines and stuff like that. We're in such a nice little spot that you can try all these Southern Arizona wines without even having to leave Tombstone. So it's really, really cool.
Yeah, that is really neat. And then are either of you beer drinkers? Have you, I like beer, but I haven't been to the brewery yet. So
The brewery is cool. I am not much of a beer drinker, but they have so much variety that even if you don't like the taste of hops, which I'm not a fan of overly bitter, they have great wheat beers, like pretty much anything to suit the taste. So even I found something that I could enjoy.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And that's what I love about, again, when you think of a town like Tombstone, so we talked about in its heyday, upwards of 15,000 people. What's the population today?
Close to 1,300.
1,300.
We have dwindled a bit, but during, snowbird season, you wouldn't even know with how bustling and busy the town is. You really kind of see what it would have been like back in the day to walk into Tombstone and just have people all over the place enjoying themselves.
That's really neat. So
But in the early 1900s, it dipped down to like only 200 or 300, right? I mean, it got really low. And because of tourism, it's slowly built back up a little bit. So,
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
That's really cool. All right. Number 9 is ride a stagecoach. We didn't get to ride a stagecoach, but they are so fun. These things are gigantic. They're like the Wells Fargo type stagecoach.
Exactly.
They're huge. Huge.
Yeah, that's what they're replicas of, as the old stagecoaches that you would take across the country.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible to ride in one and actually be able to feel what it feels like to lumber along. I can't imagine how long these trips must have been and hard they must have been. So it really gives you a great idea of how to get an idea of what that felt like.
Absolutely. And I'm sure the
appreciation for an RV these days too.
Amen to that. We have like air suspension on ours and it's super nice, but still we'll hit a bump and I'm like, oh, that was a little rough. I couldn't imagine, I really think the original pioneers that went out west were the original RVers. They had literally had everything in their wagon behind them. They all hung out together. They'd circle up at night around a campfire, telling stories and singing songs. They're the OGs of RVing.
That's it.
And you think about a stagecoach and to try to get out west, when it's just you and some luggage, and to climb into one of these things and go literally for days and days and days and days. And that we look at today and go, oh yeah, we can get there in, 12 hours. And back then it took 2 weeks. So just incredible.
All right. So what about number 8 here?
Okay. Well, in a town like Tombstone, you have to belly up to a bar. It seriously is a rite of passage in this town, because I feel like back in the day, that's what you did. I mean, it was your phone, it was your Instagram, it was your Facebook. If you wanted to know anything, you go into a bar, you belly up to a bar and you talk to the old barkeep and you find out what's going on in town. Yep. So, and there's so many great historic bars in town. Do you ladies have any preferences on, like, if you're like, I'm going to belly up to a bar, this is the one it's going to be?
Oh gosh, they're all
you get a different vibe in every one of them too.
Absolutely, that's true.
We had over 100 bars during the heyday.
Oh my gosh.
Getting the dirt around town would have been easy peasy. Yes. You have, of course, the Oriental, which Wyatt Earp got involved with. And it's only in recent years that they've turned it back into a saloon. My whole time growing up, it was a gift shop.
Really?
So you did get to experience that Old West feel in there up until about 5-ish years ago.
5 years ago.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, so they finally redid it. So that's probably one of my favorites. They still maintain your upstairs portion and stuff like that. And it's cool, but it gets really hot in there. So when you go in there, go have your time, it is like being back in the 1800s. You have very little airflow. You're going to be drinking. You're going to be having a good time, but it's going to be hot. And you're going to feel like you are in the 1880s.
That's neat.
Like everybody else was, especially with the reenactors they have in there. So you could walk in on a Wednesday, afternoon and see people dressed as cowboys with your, saloon girls.
Yeah.
So that's a really cool aspect about a lot of the bars around here. You have that back in time portal when you go through the front doors.
Yeah, we witnessed that when we went to lunch. We went to Big Nose Kate's.
Yep.
And they have, the incredible bar, like you said, ran from door all the way to the back.
All the way to the back. That's right.
And the girls were dressed up. I know there was a guy standing over by us by the piano that was dressed up, holding a shotgun. And it was just a lot of fun. The atmosphere was fun.
Yep.
And now there's also like a whiskey of choice here in town that has been
Absolutely.
around since the
Well,
1800s.
Doc Holliday's favorite whiskey.
Yes. And so if you go to one of these bars and you're a whiskey drinker, you have to get a shot of one of this. And what is it called?
It's called Old Overholt Straight Rye Whiskey.
Aha, yes. And it's been around for a long
211 years.
211 years.
211 years. And ironically, it's branded about an hour, or it's made brewed. Now, what do you say? You don't say
Distilled?
distilled. There we go.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
what we're looking for. About an hour from where Caly and I lived.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
down in
Uh-huh.
That
Louisville.
was fantastic.
Yeah. So
It
small
was bought
world.
out by Jim Beam Brewery. I don't know what year. I didn't see that, but yeah. So Jim Beam now brews that. But Old Overholt, it was good. I tried it at Big Nose Kate's. It's got a very sweet, and it's got
like caramel, because
yeah.
I tasted it too, like slightly sweet caramel
with some spices
with a
in
hint
it.
of spice.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad. And I'm not a whiskey drinker at all. But yeah, a little bit of taste. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. It's very smooth, very smooth.
Well, and if you go in Arizona, Bill said this, or Arizona Bill, he said if you go drink at Big Nose Kate's up at the bar and you have the Old Overholt, most likely Doc Holliday had a drink at that bar, because that used to be the Grand Hotel. And that bar is the original bar from the
the hotel,
1880s.
yeah.
So very, so you can live in his footsteps
Yeah.
and have a drink of his favorite whiskey at a bar he most likely drank at.
Yeah.
So.
And that's something I want to emphasize again about Tombstone. Don't think that this is some reenactment of a movie set, because it's not. The actual movie set is over in Mescal, which is,
Not too
probably
far.
45 minutes from
Yeah.
here, an hour from here. But Tombstone is the actual living, breathing town where all of this took place. And it's still here and it's still preserved. So you can come here and stand at a bar that Wyatt Earp stood at. You can stand at a bar and order a drink that Doc Holliday was at. You can walk into these saloons, walk down these streets where all of this happened, and experience it very similar to what it was like back then, which I think is incredible.
I won't give it away, but you can even see bullet holes that
Yes!
supposedly Doc
Yes!
Holliday put in a floor. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, which is so cool. So, all right. So after you've bellied up to the bar, now you're going to need a bite to eat. You gotta fill it up. So there's, again, a small town of 1,300 people. There are so many food options. We ate at Big Nose Kate's. It was delicious. Some of the best chicken wings I've ever had. You've got a steakhouse in town, a sandwich shop in town. What are some of your favorites? And is there really, there's probably no bad place to eat.
No,
everything is good.
Yeah.
We don't have fast food here, and us locals are picky, so it's got to be good. I'm very biased. I have been eating at the Longhorn restaurant since before I was born.
Yeah.
The owners are my godparents, so I grew up in there.
Oh.
So to go there now, it is really, like a little chunk of childhood. When I'll get the chicken nuggets still, or the chicken fingers. But really, anywhere you go will have amazing food, because during the off season, it's just us locals keeping us afloat. And we are very picky. They're very picky. So it's got to be good.
And the places in town are really good to the locals. They really are. They realize that we live here. We're not just someone that's coming in for a day visit. They realize they know most of us.
Yeah.
Honestly, they know most of us. And there are even some places that will do a local discount because you live here.
Yeah. That's nice.
Yeah. So, and there isn't a bad place.
No, there really isn't. And two, you get the history right off the bat. The Longhorn Restaurant and Big Nose Kate's are owned by the Goldsteins, which Gloria, his wife, she's actually a direct descendant of Pancho Villa.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
So even, that chunk of Mexican history is right here in Tombstone.
That is incredible. And I think that's just absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And then you've also got some delectable little, you've got, what is it? The Fallen Angel Sweet Sin Parlor. You've got Grandma Fudpuckers.
Yeah.
And then you even have the Sarsaparilla Emporium.
Oh,
so,
yes.
After a great meal, you can go over and grab a dessert or like an authentic root beer.
Yeah. We've got another ice cream parlor over on 4th Street. And we've got some small places. We have a place now that's fairly new called Mom and Pop Sandwiches, and they're just to go, but it's like sub sandwiches. And
nice.
they're really
Dangerous pie.
Dangerous
yeah,
pie.
yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
also at the Hotel Tombstone across from the Birdcage. They have the big old pizza slab pies, and then they also do old-fashioned pies as well.
Oh,
So
I am getting super hungry right now.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be another day of eating in Tombstone. And the hardest part is going to decide where.
Yeah. And
That's how we get you.
And that's really a testament to the fact that all of the locals pretty much like all of the places that are here in town.
Which again is huge in a town of 1,300, to have this many options and choices and for that to thrive all year round is incredible. That is awesome. So once you're done eating, well, now it's time to shop. And you have so many great stores, everything from if you want authentic Western gear, you can get it here. You have antiques. I think it was Arizona Bill talking, one of the gentlemen was telling us, this store over here has the best guns. If you want to get in and get in there and get a great antique gun. Yeah. He's like, I just like going in there and looking at them. I mean, you can get souvenirs. So if you want to, like I got my birdcage t-shirt on today. If you want your souvenir shirt or Christmas ornaments, right. The Boothill Graveyard. Oh, I'm your Huckleberry. Yeah. I love that. You can find it here. You can definitely get all the cute, catchy stuff. Mm-hmm. But then you can get the really cool kind of authentic things here as well.
You bet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you have any favorite stores you recommend? It's literally just hit them all.
They're all good. And they're all different for the most part. You will find, similar touristy type stuffs, but each store has kind of their own little unique thing of what they're doing. Mm-hmm. You can find, replicas that are so good. They look like the real thing. Or you can find little cap guns for the kids, you know, everything in between, keychains, wallets, silly things you'd never even think to find out here. Yeah. We got them.
That's awesome. And I think I even remember passing, isn't there like a soap and candle store?
Yep.
Yeah.
There is.
Oh, yeah. Because I remember walking by going, oh my gosh, that smells so good.
And there's a couple jewelry stores too.
Yes.
And there's
art galleries.
Art galleries.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't realize art galleries too.
There's two art galleries.
Wow.
Yeah, there's one next to the visitor center, and then there's one over in the Trawick building on 5th Street.
Okay.
So kind of have it all, like Tony Joe said.
Right. Absolutely. Sure. Again, impressive, folks. This is a town seemingly in the middle of nowhere, Arizona, that, can hold this much. And it's just incredible and attract, again, 500,000 people a year. So, and I see why. I get it now. Looking for overnight RV stays that are way beyond ordinary and more exciting than the rest area parking lot? RV Overnights is your ticket to unforgettable RV travel, giving you exclusive access to a nationwide network of unique, off-the-beaten-path overnight stays. Say goodbye to crowded campgrounds and hello to authentic experiences hosted by welcoming locals, all with just one easy membership. With RV Overnights, you'll get access to a huge network of unique places to park your rig, like wineries, farms, breweries, museums, and even alpaca ranches. 14 host categories in all. And with filters to narrow your search, think pet-friendly, extra nights, big rig access, scenic views, even boondocking. You'll find the perfect spot every time, whether you're a full-timer, a weekend warrior, or just chasing the seasons. Ready to level up your RV travel and experience unlimited stays with RV Overnights? Head over to rvovernights.com and use the code RVDMAG, that's RVDMAG, at checkout to save $10 off a yearly membership. That's rvovernights.com, because every overnight should feel like a destination. So number 5 is dig into history. And would you say that kind of starting at the Tombstone Courthouse State Park would be a good place to kind of dig in and see that history?
Oh, yeah.
I think so. Despite it being, our state park location, it really has an amazing history. It was commissioned because we had our fires to protect our records. It still has the gallows set up, the judges' quarters, the courtroom. We would actually use that location in high school for our mock trials for American history.
Oh my gosh.
So it's really, really fascinating and amazing that they have been able to preserve all of those artifacts there. It is probably one of my top recommendations when folks come to town.
Now, is there an artifact in particular there that you were just like, okay, this is the coolest thing you have to see? Or is there just...
It's just a lot. It's a lot to take in. because you could go there a couple days in a row and then be like, oh, I didn't even see this the last time. So it's really cool. And to do the high school stuff there, I got to be the judge. So I got to sit in the judge's chair, hold the gavel, and look out across, the courtroom and really like feel like we're back in time. Yeah. There's 3 little pigs, but it was a cool experience. And that is one of my top recommendations, just because it holds so much of Tombstone's history and was built because of, things that were going on in town, that they just didn't have a town and be like, oh, of course we need a courthouse. It's like, we have a town, we had a courthouse, it burned down, we need a better one. Yeah. And I have been told that the cornerstone is actually a time capsule. Really? That underneath there's supposed to be silver artifacts and, other goodies, but I don't even know.
I don't know either.
Yeah. I don't even know. Is it folklore? Is it true? Like,
it could be. It could be. I would think with the type of people you had in town back then, that there would have definitely been some kind of, capsule effort. Because you did have so many different groups of people coming from the areas surrounding, not just like your Mexicans or your Chinese, which is your workforce. You had people coming from Europe. Yeah. Like huge amounts of people coming from Europe, coming to America to make their life, end up in little old Tombstone of all places, and, donating an artifact, be it, something that they acquired here in town or something they brought with them. So I truly hope that it is not just a rumor and that one day they'll crack it open and let us see what's in there. Because just that location and history is huge, like huge just for one spot. Right. So that's how you get multiple days worth of going around town. We have people coming that have been coming for like 20, 30 years and still find something new about Tombstone every time they return. Wow. So it's not just like the OK Corral history. There was, 10,000 plus people's lives of history out here, and the courthouse is definitely a good place to start.
That's really cool. That's really cool. We got to walk by it. We saw the gallows, that have been rebuilt, which I think is really neat to see, because that was history back then. That's what happened. If you committed a crime, you could be tried and you could be hung for it. And they left those gallows out there to remind people to, hey, live straight up.
We meant business. Yeah.
Exactly. So that is awesome. Okay, number 4 we did do, which was awesome, and that is tour the town with Arizona Bill. And he offers tours around town, and he was just the coolest dude in the world. He really. And just giving us so much history. And what I loved about it is it was not a ghost tour, because he's like, I don't kind of really believe in that kind of thing. But if you stop here and you come back after dark and you take a picture through that window, you'll see a little apparition of a little boy. All right, moving on. And he was just like so matter of fact about it. And I loved it. And, several times, it's not something I believe in, but if you look over here and you stand on this corner after dark and you take a picture over here, you'll see some orbs. Not anything I believe in, but other folks see it.
I love him.
And it was just, he was
very matter of fact.
He was great. So it was so neat to hear the history as he walked through the towns and literally kind of painted that picture of what the town looked like, because it has changed since the late 1800s, and rightly so. You went through 2 fires and, potential collapse and rebuild. So he's like, oh yeah, this building used to be 2 stories. There was a staircase that went up here. Here's, something that took place here in this event. And it was like, wow, that's really fascinating. So definitely recommend
it really
him.
puts everything in perspective, because he was telling about the Grand Hotel, which I just found fascinating, where the bar was actually downstairs. And where you eat now was actually the lobby of the hotel. And during the renovation process, they lost a whole level. Wasn't it a 3-story?
Yes.
I think he said it was 3 stories. So 2 of the stories are gone. It's just a 1-story now. But, I guess I don't know if they count the basement as one of the stories.
Maybe. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, that I don't know either.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, they brought the bar up from down and put it in the main room where the lobby was. And it's just really cool atmosphere. But Arizona Bill was telling you all these stories. Like, well, go down there, make sure you visit that gift shop. It's a real good gift shop. So, we really enjoyed that.
It was a lot of fun. And I know that there's other tour companies available in town as well. And like the Stagecoach, they take you around town and give a quick little narrated tour.
Yep.
There's a trolley
tours. Yep. Yeah, the trolley tours. They offer a lot, and everybody that does them tries to give you as much of the history of what you're looking at as you're going around, just like you're walking around with Arizona Bills.
I always recommend trying to do the stagecoach and the trolley tour, as the stagecoach focuses on your main historic district. The trolley will tour around town.
Oh, okay.
So you get the kind of perimeter. You do have some overlap with some, history, but that's going to happen. But it's really cool to kind of go down the back roads and see where people were living, because we do still have historic homes out there. And interesting homes like have been moved.
Yeah.
We had a full 2-story adobe home moved when I was a child from clear on this side of town all the way to the far end of town on 2 flatbeds, an adobe home. So you have history getting spread out all over, and it's just really cool. And they're so informative. They work really hard not to give you too much fluff, and really stick to the history, which I appreciate. It makes my job a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But people also really appreciate it. The folks that come here that are here for history, I always get the best reviews from them that they love that we hold on to it and don't try and doctor it, don't try and Hollywood it. We believe that, good or bad, this is Tombstone, and here it is for you.
Yeah.
And I love that. And this is actually going to take us into our next one, which you're very familiar with, which is Boothill Graveyard. But when we were talking in Boothill, I said, how did you because my understanding is it was overgrown by weeds and all that, and then the city made an effort to come in and clean it out. But to go back and find each one of the people that were in the graves that you went through you went through newspaper articles, you went through court records, you went through all these, and so the town as a whole, and I'm saying this as a whole, in addition to the Boothill Graveyard, it seems like they've really done a lot of research to make sure the authenticity of the story is kind of backing up what you were just saying.
Yeah.
And that's just really neat that if you didn't find a name in that grave, you didn't put a name on there just randomly. You did, it's left unknown.
Right. Yeah.
But there were a lot of unknowns that were buried, as we talked about in the fun facts. Like the shootout happens, they just quickly bury him and don't put a name on it.
Right, because
we are 100-something years later, and we don't know.
We don't know, because it was Joe Schmo, and unfortunately, Joe just came into town that day and stood in the wrong place at the wrong time, and boom, Joe's gone. And they're like, "Well, we don't know this guy. Did you know this guy? I didn't know this guy. All right, well, throw him in the graveyard."
Right.
Right.
All right. So tell us about Boothill Graveyard.
Yes, which is number 3
about this one.
Yeah, this is all you.
So Boothill is my place. You have the town as it's up and coming to its heyday. Those folks are out there. So women, children, cowboys, upstanding citizens, ladies of the night, pretty much anybody that passed away during your 1879 to 1883 period would have been buried at Boothill. Folks that were sick, you would have had a little rough burial.
Okay.
The gentleman that we saw on Saturday.
Yeah.
He was drug out there. So if you were very sick and everybody around you knew it, you would have unfortunately been drug out of town, attached to a horse on a rope, and put in your grave that way. You do also have some folks out there that were really well received despite what they were doing in life, like your Clanton and McClarys from your OK Corral shootout. The time that they were in, a lot of folks just saw them as guys trying to make a living. They had a lot of friends. So their funeral was one of the biggest in Tombstone. Another one coming close, it would have been Dutch Annie, who was considered queen of the red light district.
Wow.
So even those folks that were considered, tainted by our today's standards would have been celebrated back then for their contributions to town. And you can see that appreciation out there. You also get a lot of your sad history, your untimely deaths, your children falling, into the river and drowning. San Pedro is only about 8 miles away. So even in the desert, drowning wasn't uncommon. And walking through there, you can really see what those early pioneers were up against, the harsh conditions, the lack of clean water, medical supplies. Dr. Goodfellow actually came out here and his son ended up passing away, his youngest son. So even, the doctor wasn't escaping the dangers of Tombstone, be it, animal, stampede, shootings, good old fashioned, what we call lead poisoning out here. But yeah, that's really how you see the type of people that was in town. And it shows your women that were here, with their men, and sometimes they would choose to not be here anymore. So even today, you can look back and be like, they were still suffering from the same things we are suffering from now. So it kind of connects the past to the present.
Yeah.
And definitely, I don't want to say gets you on a right foot, but gets you into the mind frame of 1880s Tombstone desert. Like, it's fascinating.
You guys do this great like brochure that you hand out, which is incredible because it goes row by row and tombstone by tombstone of what you know about these folks. Like C.O. Ridgway, 1882, his team of horses and wagons were found on a road leading out of Tombstone. Investigation showed Old Man Ridgway to be lying dead in the wagon. You know, and so it was like these bits of history that you found that you could connect to these folks. You know, so you can do a self-guided tour and get your little brochure, which is incredibly helpful. Now, do you do any other tours outside of that?
I do, yes. So when it's warm and I am not a weenie because it's too cold right now, I do guided weekend tours.
Okay.
It's generally $30 a person. We spend 2 hours out there, and it's really up to the group on what we do. I go through and I showcase our lesser known Tombstone citizens, those folks that were really keeping the town running and making the town the place to be. After the first hour, if folks are interested in paranormal, I can do that guided as well, or they're welcome to go off and explore the unknown. But most of my folks just are there for the history. We'll spend 2 hours going over the graves, talking about the life, you know, what they would have been coming up against, sharing personal stories, finding out if they had family out there. Some of our visitors come through looking for family.
Really?
If you, all the internet here, if you are a Ziegler or know a Ziegler, Joseph Ziegler buried at Boothill is probably your relation.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
finding that the Zieglers have a massive family tree. Extending all the way from, I think it's Pennsylvania. I think they were Pennsylvania Dutch or something like that, moving out west. And some of those Zieglers have established such great genealogy information that you can see how the family made it to Tombstone.
Wow.
So if you look in your history and you find that you got family out here, you are welcome to come and visit your family and, you know, learn about what was making the West wild.
That is so cool.
One thing that I absolutely loved, and you touched on this, Caly, but out of Boothill was reading the tombstones. They were great. They were like,
oh, they're great.
This guy died in a blast.
Like here lies Lester Moore, 4 slugs from a 44, no less, no more.
This lady was stabbed by a gold dollar.
Margarita.
Margarita. That's right.
Margarita stabbed by gold dollar, and gold dollar, not like a literal gold dollar. Gold dollar was another lady of the night, and so was Margarita.
So was that a specific person, or was that a nickname for Lady of the Night?
No, Gold Dollar was her pseudonym that she used as a Lady of the Night, and that actually happened at the birdcage.
Yeah, that is how we tie the birdcage to Boothill. That is one of the many folks that ended up at Boothill. Margarita is one of our lesser known residents out there. But people typically find her and they're like, oh my gosh, this is the Lady of the Night. You know, they buried him out here next to your common folk. And that's also where you get the little mix up in town. You have folks talking about, oh, that's not the true site, when in reality, people got moved from that site after they were buried because people like Dutch Annie and Margarita were buried there.
Yeah.
So you have a good chunk that is now at our new cemetery, which is also 100 years old, that were formerly at Boothill. And now they're in a little bit more of a respectable area. But I got some cousins out there, so it's kind of iffy.
That's funny.
That's great. Well, that leads us perfectly into number 2, which is the Birdcage Theater. And I have to say, it was a struggle between Boothill and Birdcage.
We should say that the only reason you put number 1 there is because that's what draws everybody to the area. Because for me, I think Birdcage would be number 1,
Boothill
would be
number 2. I agree.
Anyway, and that'll make sense as we reveal the number 1. But Birdcage Theater was just incredible. Now, I've been here 2 or 3 times. I think this is my 3rd time. Caly's been here twice, and the first time we've kind of just went through our Oh, I'm like, do we have people looking at us?
The mayor.
The mayor.
Oh, the mayor. Hello,
The mayor
mayor.
drove by. He drove by.
But the first time, so you're able to go into the bird cage and for free into the lobby, essentially, or
Yeah.
into the bar, and then they give you a little tiny bit of history, but then you have to pay extra to go back behind there.
And it's a self-guided tour.
It's a self-guided tour, correct. And
But we had the tour master.
well, what I was going to get
Yeah.
at is the first two times I didn't pay that extra
Right.
15, 16 bucks, whatever it is. And I regret it now because
Yeah.
we had the benefit. Nova, thank you so much again. She spent
Yeah.
all day with us Saturday. She being a tour guide there at the birdcage, gave us a private tour in the back. And it's incredible. It is downright incredible, and everybody should do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mind-blowing, incredible.
Yes.
One, and I said this to you, Nova, when we were in there, I was like, wow, it's like a very small space. And Arizona Bill told us, and you did as well, is back then, the average height for a man was what, like 5'2"
It was
to 5'?
5'2" to 5'9",
Mm-hmm.
and the average height for a woman was 4'2" to 4'10".
Yeah. After you said that and then standing in the birdcage, I'm like, oh, this makes sense now
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it just feels small.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're a
I mean,
lot taller, in today's
absolutely.
standards.
Absolutely so.
But it was incredible. You pointed out bullet holes that Doc Holliday and Johnny Ringo had made when they attempted to get into a gunfight with each other, but they were so drunk they just shot the floor, which is a good thing. Just all of the artifacts, the incredible original wallpaper that was
Yes.
hand painted. And where would that?
It was hand painted in France
in France.
and brought over for the grand opening in 1881.
Wow.
And it's still on those walls. And that
Yeah.
blue is just brilliant
Mhm.
Yeah.
after all these years. It really is.
It's amazing because I know they've brought in some artifacts, but it just really feels like it's stuck in time because you said the curtains from the
Yeah,
stage
absolutely.
are all originally
all original.
painted.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They call them cribs, and they're above, and they're basically where men would go enjoy the lady of the nights while shows were going on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
One lady, one evening, and one bottle.
Yep.
Right. And then they had Pharaoh going on the side, right?
They had
Pharaoh and
lots of
poker.
different gambling
Okay.
that went on. They had a dice table, they had Pharaoh, they had poker, they had other dice games. That dice game that's in the base in the poker room
Yeah.
downstairs was originally up on the main
Okay.
floor. So that was a different type of a dice game with the cage.
Mhm.
I'm not even sure what it is. But all of that went on upstairs with the exception of the big poker.
Yeah. So tell us about this poker game because this is the downstairs. Okay. And first off, folks, we're in a desert. There's a basement in a desert, which is just cool in and of itself. You have to go see. But they recently opened this in the past several years for folks to
in
go
the
see.
90s. They opened it in 97.
90s. Okay.
Yep. They opened that in 97. So because of what it was also a theater. It was actually part of the beginnings of vaudeville. A lot of the early vaudevillians cut their teeth on these frontier towns like Tombstone. So there were theatrical troupes that would play there. Very famous entertainers of that time that played the stage there. So the back door that we went out into the document room, that would have been the back door to the back alleyway behind the building. Any of the performers, with the exception of the really big headliners, would have had to use those backstage stairs to go up, carry your sets, carry all of your stuff for your show and that kind of thing. So that was actually the back entrance to the theatrical entrance, basically. But this poker game did go on downstairs while the building was operational. And it's the most famous poker game in the West. It truly is. The buy-in for this game was $1,000. Basically, that's about $30,000 to sit at the table today. Before you ever played a hand of cards, the smallest poker chip was $20, and it did run 8 years, 5 months, and 3 days nonstop.
Wow.
Yes. So during the time that game ran, there was $10 million exchanged hands on that poker table.
Yeah.
That's a $30 million poker game.
That's incredible.
Yes, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. And you had to pay the $1,000 before there was a waiting list. So you came to the birdcage, you paid $1,000, you waited your turn, and you hoped that when your name came up, they were able to find you in town.
Wow, because if not, then you just lost $30,000 in today's dollars.
Yeah, pretty much.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's like a car.
yeah.
That's
Diamond Jim Brady, Dick Clark, Doc Holliday, those were all very famous gambling names. And George Hurst and you know, he would come and meet Adolphus Busch, who founded the Busch breweries.
Oh
They
my
would come
gosh.
here just
What?
to play in the game.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yep.
And that was really neat to see. And then you also had the Mariah hearse
The
cart.
Black Mariah?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
which is
Yeah.
incredible. So there was only 8 made, and this is the last
Yeah.
one remaining.
It is the last remaining one. It was made in Rochester, New York, and it was the purchase price back then was $8,000.
Cool. That's a
Was
lot of
just
money.
Absolutely an unimaginable amount of money.
Yeah.
And then they brought it here, and it carried a good number
Mhm.
of our pioneers
Yeah.
to their final resting place.
Wow.
Yeah,
And it's a beautiful hearse,
Oh,
you know,
yes, it
drawn
is.
by like horse and buggy hearse.
absolutely.
Like gold leaf
It is
and
inlaid
silver.
in 24 karat
Yeah.
gold sterling silver fixtures. It's just
Wow.
absolutely the most
It's
ornate
beautiful.
thing you've ever seen.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And so it was that the bird cage was just fascinating because you had shared with us, you know, when the town started going, you know, when the mine started flooding and mine started shutting down, that the bird cage was like, we're just going to shut the doors and leave everything as is.
Uh-huh.
And it became almost a storage facility for many, many years.
Unintentional time capsule.
Right.
Mr.
Yeah.
Cummings was a pack rat. Mr. Cummings was one of the partners, along with Mr. Hunley's great grandfather, Mr. Ohm.
Mhm.
And they were really and truly hoping to just be able to reopen for
Yeah.
business. And that didn't happen. When the heyday started to dwindle,
Mhm.
basically, these things that Mr. Cummings had unintentionally stored in the building became huge links to our history here.
Yeah.
And so we are so glad that he essentially was a pack rat. That's what Mr. Hunley told
Yeah.
me years ago. He was a pack rat. There are photographs that I've seen that Mr. Hunley's family has that, you know, show the whole building just filled with stuff. The backstage is
Wow.
just stacked with stuff, you know. I would love to see all of it. And years ago, it was a lot more crowded. They did thin it out. They wanted to have more accessibility
Yeah.
for wheelchairs and scooters and mobility apparatus. So that's, you know, and then that was the other reason when they opened the downstairs, they put the ramp
Yeah.
on the side of the building so that people are able to access that part of our history
Mhm.
as well. So
It's incredible.
it really
It's incredible.
it is, you know, and I do have to say too, like there are a lot of people that come to Tombstone and they insist on the history being something you have to absolutely show documentation.
Right. Yeah.
You can't do that. I want to say to anybody that comes to visit Tombstone, we have a lot of amazing history. Tony Jo was born and raised
Mhm,
here, so
yeah.
she's more of a Tombstone resident than I am.
Mhm.
I'm a transplanted, but keep in mind that some of these are families. These are family
Yeah.
legends. These are family stories. These are family history.
Mhm.
Not everything is going to be documented in the history books, especially when it was history that was considered seedy.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Who's going to go, what did you do with that fellow gentleman over there? Let me take some notes.
You know,
Mhm.
it is wonderful history, and we preserve it as best we can.
Right.
With the understanding that a lot of these families that are still here after all this time
Yeah.
are passing along legends.
Yeah. That's really cool. That is really cool. So
Very cool.
I,
All
I
right.
feel like we could end it there, but we can't because
Yeah,
we're
we
down
gotta
to
go
number one.
And again, I personally think birdcage would be number one,
Mhm.
but because most people come for this, so number one is you got to visit the OK Corral, of course. That's what's bringing you to
the OK Corral. See where the shootout happened. And you shared with us, because we didn't know either, you get a lot with your ticket. So the ticket gets you in to watch the shootout reenactment, which is like a 30,000 foot view of kind of what culminated up to that day for that shootout to happen. And it's about a 20-minute presentation?
Well, no, the show is probably a 40-minute show.
Is it? Okay, about a 40-minute show. You know, and watching gunfight reenactments happens outside of the OK Corral also, which I think is great. So don't worry if you don't get to the OK Corral and you want to watch a reenactment. They're out there to see. So you've got the OK Corral. You have the Old Tombstone, Western Town, Wyatt's Saloon Theater. and Wyatt Earp's Oriental Saloon and Theater. And you can actually go to the Visitor Center, great place to go, and get your little reenactment schedule right there. So you can always catch it.
We will actually have those available on our website as well.
So you've got that, but they also have like a museum. Well, they have a museum that covers the buildings, some of the buildings that were there located in and around.
The property, once you go inside, is its own museum.
Okay.
It really and truly is. The entire property is its museum.
Yeah, because they have the original, the photo house, we'll say the photo studio.
Camilla's Fly's photo studio.
Yeah, which is incredible, which is just, you walked me through there and got to see all of his photographs because the town had a photographer, like you shared, so much of the town's history is captured in photographs, which is amazing. A lot of towns don't have that.
No, we are absolutely so fortunate that the photographic history that we do have of Tombstone has to be attributed to Camilla's Fly.
Yeah. That's amazing. And so those buildings are there that you can walk in around. They have a crib, a lady of the night. Her crib is there.
Yes.
And there was a blacksmith that was there and working, and you can actually purchase items from him, which was really neat. And then the original Corral, the literal corral is there. And then also the area where the actual shootout happened. And then they have, mannequins that are standing in the area representing all the different folks that were in that gunfight. So you can see that. That's just on the outside. Then you took us to this diorama show, which was so cool.
The Historama.
So cool. Historama, sorry.
The Tombstone Historama. It is a diorama.
It is?
It absolutely is a diorama. It was done in 1968. And it is old school technology. There is also like a film portion. I always felt like when they bring the screen down, like when we were in kid and we got movie day or they would do a documentary in history class, it was so cool.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I feel like when they bring the screen down, and it is narrated by Vincent Price.
Yeah, which is so cool.
And it is such a great narration, but it is basically the first 50 years history of Tombstone, kind of in a nutshell. And it truly is the coolest thing ever. I told you, my kids and my grandkids still come and they visit the Historama.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
It was really, really cool.
It did actually used to be bigger. Previously it was bigger when it was Mr. Love's.
It was here?
And it was actually here in Shefflin Hall. And then they moved it over to the building that it's in now. And it's been downsized by a couple of cells.
Okay.
Because obviously this is
way larger.
A lot more room. Yeah. But it is the neatest thing.
Yeah.
But people don't realize that it's included.
With the ticket, right.
Yes,
and then on the way out, we went over to the Epitaph. Is that how you say epitaph? Epitaph. And we got our little paper, which that is a little museum too, and got our paper that totally outlines everything that happened the day after the gunfight.
That was the actual paper the following day after the shootout.
The reprint of it.
Yes.
So really, really cool. So, and it's just neat. I love it. I have to point out this little advertisement in here because I got a chuckle out of this last night. Down here, Madame Ladeau's Tombstone. Our recommendation, ask any man.
Making the girl recommendations.
Yes, Lady of the Night. Nice. I love it. You know, the fact that was in a newspaper. So
could you get a Lady of the Night during the day?
I think you can get a Lady of the Night anytime.
The mines ran 24 hours.
Oh, okay.
So the houses ran 24 hours.
Yep.
So we could just step right into the birdcage and
go see a Lady of the Night at 2 p.m.
That's really cool. So
that's amazing.
And I should say, we've got to wrap it up to respect time here. We have a certain time to break down because otherwise the city council or somebody's going to be kicking us out here.
Yeah, there's a luncheon happening soon.
So if you're pressed for time and you only have a day to dedicate it, you got to see the Corral, Birdcage Theater, and Boothill. Those are the three I would say. Those are the top three I would think that everybody really comes to see. But definitely do the backstage tour or backstage self-guided tour of the Birdcage. I would highly recommend that. That was amazing. That changed me.
Yeah.
Go out to Boothill, read some of the tombstones. That was amazing, and just the history that you have here. But I wanted to talk as we start wrapping it up here. So the city's done a really good job with a lot of ample parking here. It's all free parking, and so You can either bring your toad down here and park in there, or some of them are even big enough to fit your rig in here.
Yeah.
Certainly a Class C, Class B, no problem. And maybe
you said you have big tractor trailers that'll come through town, and there's plenty of room at the old former football field.
At the old football field at the old high school.
Okay.
And then and the entrance to that is you can see the field from Fremont, from the highway.
Okay.
But the entrance is actually on Allen Street.
Okay.
But also the lowest parking lot on 6th Street.
Okay.
A lot of rigs come. And if you want to if you're a day tripper.
Yeah.
If you're a day tripper, and those are the easiest to maneuver.
Yeah, if you're heading out to Las Cruces or headed out to Tucson and you just want to make a day stop, you can do that. I don't recommend. I think there's more here than that. But if you just don't have the time, definitely come down and see that. Now, also the town's very walkable. Once you park your vehicle, very, very walkable.
Yeah.
Pretty much you can get anywhere.
And accessible for those that are a little bit more challenged for getting around. It is definitely accessible, and a lot of the activities are accessible as well.
Well, and a lot of the historical downtown is actually blocked off from many vehicles.
Right.
You might run into a stagecoach or a horse, but or Arizona Bill walking backwards.
Yes, he does. He just keeps on going.
He walks backwards. I saw him almost running. I'm like, hi, and they
were like,
oh.
That's like parting the Red Sea.
I guess he knows that. Now, let's talk about camping options in Tombstone. So in the general vicinity of Tombstone, there's 62 campgrounds, so there's plenty. Now, actually, in the city of Tombstone, there was actually 4 in the actual city. Is that correct? And you've got all 4 of them? I don't have the...
Well, actually, there are 5, right?
5, okay.
So coming into town, you're going to find the old KOA, which is now Tombstone RV. We have Stampede RV Resort. Trail Riders also has a lot of RV hookups. Whole dry camping area, if you prefer
on
that.
3rd Street.
Off of 3rd Street behind the historic courthouse.
Oh, okay.
We have Silverbelt RV Park, which is at the opposite end of town, but as he was saying before, everything is very walkable, super, super close by. And even if you think you parked far, you really didn't.
Yeah.
It's not bad at all.
So Tombstone RV Park and Campground, again, this part is brought to you by RV Life's Campground. It's a free resource you can use. But Tombstone RV Park got really good reviews, 8.8 out of 10 stars. The other one that got really good, where was it? Tombstone Dry Camping RV Park. Again, it says dry camping. There's a reason it says that. 9.1 stars out of quite a few reviews. So now we actually stayed in Benson. We stayed at the Butterfield Observatory RV Park, which we thought was really neat because we're into astronomy and all that stuff. And that's only a short 30-minute drive. So you've got different options, and it's right on out I-10. So now we're exploring Benson, we're exploring Tombstone and Bisbee as well, and so that just was a nice central place for us.
So Sierra Vista is about 17 miles away, and they've got a good amount of RV parks over there. So there's a lot of options if you want to stay in Tombstone or stay outside and explore Tombstone and beyond.
Well, and we're promoting also historic Arizona Highway 80.
Yeah,
and that's all the way from Benson to Douglas. So a lot of people that may want to explore that route, there are stops, there are things to do, there are things to, to see and do all the way from I-10 to border.
To the border.
Basically, yeah. So,
and we're going to be featuring the historic US 80 in the magazine in our April of next year, 2026. So if you're a subscriber, plan for a lot more detail and all of these things in the article. And also, Caly's going to be mad at me for saying this. If you're still sticking around, you're a loyal listener, and we appreciate it. I did my own ghost
Randy
podcast. Well, hold on, because they're going to be guests on it. So I'm so fascinated by ghost stories and all that. I created a separate ghost podcast. We're getting it up. We got our first one out there, and it's called Caly is not my co-host. It's a good friend of mine who is actually she does ghost tours in Key West, but Jennifer Wilson's her name. But it's called Ghost Trails and Tales, Haunted America from the Road. And anyway, we're gonna have both Tony Joe and Nova on the show to talk about the birdcage haunting and also Boot Hill haunts. And so go check us out there. But anyways, thank you so much, ladies, for coming out today and joining us on this podcast. We've given you a lot of information, a lot of good things. You must come to Tombstone. You've got to come do this, especially if you have any interest in history. Come here, do this. And anyway, you want to take us out, babe?
Yeah. So thank you, ladies, so much for joining us today. This has been incredible. It's just been awesome. Thank you for the time.
Oh, you were
not
so
only
welcome.
today, but on Saturday too. We really appreciate it.
It was a great day.
Yes, it
You're
was.
welcome.
It was
A lot
so
of
much fun. So we want to thank all of you out there for joining us in here today on the RV Destinations podcast. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast wherever you find your podcast. And don't forget, anytime you want to see our happy, shiny faces, we are on YouTube now. So get out there and watch us and hit that subscribe button below so that you are always up to date on our latest content. Check out our website, rvdestinationsmagazine.com, for great free, FREE, free RV travel resources for you so you get the most out of your next trip. And again, we just want to thank you all for joining us today.
Be safe.
Safe travels, y'all.